I was the last session of the day on the first day before the cocktail hour. I was like, oh man, so thank you for coming. I'm just curious before I get started, how many of you are learning and designers, instructional designers? Like I'm just kind of trying to see who's in the room, educators in some way, okay. And then how many of you are involved in some kind of video production for your courses? Okay, awesome, thank you. So today, I'm going to go through the talk that I have, and it's really to present to you my story and what my team does in terms of video production. It's by no ways the right way or the one way to do things, but I'm going to give you some context of why we've made the choices we made and then how we go about making a lot of videos. But what I want to welcome you to do too is don't feel like you have to wait till the end for questions. I may actually ask you like, hey, just shout something out. We could make Caleb run around with the mic, but we can shout too. So please let this be as interactive as you want it to be. And I would appreciate that, so I'm not up here talking the whole time. So yeah, today, like I said, I want to talk about successful strategies for producing and teaching with video. And again, this is very much the story of the work that I've done for Penn State Extension. So indeed, I work for Penn State University. You might have heard of us. I did not do the football pick on the front, but that is Old Main. That's our main campus. MIT reminds me a lot of Penn State. It's interesting. But the work that I do, and the reason we ended up with the Open edX platform is because Penn State's a land-grant university. This is the mission, and to provide service to communities. And so that's what Penn State Extension is. It's outreach, traditional to agricultural communities, though we do a lot in renewable and natural resources, and we do more for urban communities now. And traditionally, up until about 2017, the work of Penn State Extension educators was what you see here, literally out in the field, and teaching people about crops, about livestock. Here we are in the dairy barns. We have a lot of dairy industry, a lot of cattle in Pennsylvania. And then even how to plant riparian buffers and stream buffers. So this is part of our renewable and natural resource team. And that was all great. And Penn State's been doing this for a long time, and they're really good at the in-person piece. But in about 2008, 2010, if you remember what happened economically then, Penn State Extension is funded almost primarily by the Penn State legislature. And they said, the work you're doing is great, but how can you have a bigger reach, right? How can you move up kind of into this world wide web? We were like, oh. And we had a website, but it wasn't a great one, right? It was like everything hodgepodged and thrown together. So I came on board in 2015, right around the time that we were getting going with our new extension website. So this is just a quick screenshot of when you land there. And what I was brought in to do was to help make educational videos and online courses. So I started in 2015 part-time as a writer, and now I'm the assistant director. And so you can see our growth trajectory in 8 years to make that happen. And what we do is on our website, we have a lot of free educational videos. I like to think of this as very much the public service of Extension. To get the information out there to folks. So we do a lot of videos, video series. We have about 500 videos on our website right now. And then we do these short online courses. This is where Open edX comes in. And these short online courses, anywhere from 30 minutes to 10 hours. As I was just telling Caleb, we've got the whole broad spectrum. I'll talk about some of them here as we go forward. My favorite is writing your manure management plan. We teach people how to write their plan. Yeah. Okay, so we got our online courses. So like I said, we had to grow fast. I was one of 4 employees that came in 2015. This one was taken about 2 years ago, and we're up to 16 people now on the digital education team. Again, only for the work of Penn State Extension. So these aren't undergraduate or graduate classes. This is just for what they call non-credit. I don't love that term, but that's what they call us. Because we do offer some credits. So like I said, today I want to go over more about why we teach with video and why our videos look the way that we do. And to do that, really quick, we'll just talk about who our audience is and what the benefits are for doing video the way we do them on our team. And then get into how we teach with video, and that has to do with some quick best practices, and then really the production processes. We make a lot of video. We have over 110 live asynchronous courses running all the time, and typically in a 2 to 3 hour course, we're looking at 30 to 40 educational videos. So it's a lot of self-made videos. So I think My hope today is that my story gives you something to walk away with in terms of production processes and how to scale up if you need to scale up. Okay, and then last, if we have any final discussions and thoughts. Okay, so why we teach with video, I said we have a pretty diverse audience, and so like any instructional design or learning design, we've got to think about audience and outcomes. Who they are, why are they taking these courses, what they already know, what do we want them to know, and really this is a big factor for us. It's an asynchronous course environment. Somebody buys the course, they typically have access for 1 year. There's no instructor involvement. We're not using discussion forums. It's very much take this course, go at your own pace, earn your certificate at the end. So that has implications for design, right? That implications for how we teach if that's the environment that we're doing it in. So very much audience and learning outcomes we got to think about. So we have courses. So who's our audience? Well, we have like the personal and the hobby, right? Raising poultry in your backyard is one of our most popular courses. It's really popular these days, especially since the pandemic, to raise poultry in your backyard. Not everyone should do it though, right? And so this course talks to you about should I do it, should I not do it, how should I do it, all those things. We do work around professional development and continuing education units. So this is just part of the final quiz from a course for teachers about teaching for forests, right? And so we work with Pennsylvania Department of Ed and are able to give some credits through that. So we have a bunch of courses in that category. And then this is where we're really scaling up, and this is workforce development. So this is the idea that folks typically graduate from high school, they go into the workforce, landscaping, we've just done a huge portfolio of courses for, and they need to be trained in some way. This is a federal initiative for workforce development that's been out for about 5 years. So we're hoping that we're kind of leading the pathway in Pennsylvania on workforce development online. So this is just from pest disease management for landscape plants. Everything you ever wanted to know, signs and symptoms. So that's just to give you a little bit of an idea here about our audiences. Again, adult learners, some folks have a high school diploma, some do not. Most folks don't have a college degree for people that are taking our course. So again, really thinking about who our audience is, what's their motivation for learning. So you might be thinking, like we did in the beginning, is okay, this is great, right? We're gonna make some video-heavy courses because people learn well that way. Plus, it's pretty darn efficient, right? So I already have all these educators out in the field. They have PowerPoints. They give workshops. We'll just record them giving their PowerPoints. This is gonna be awesome, right? And then we're just gonna stick it into Open edX, add some quiz questions, and be on our way. So this is what we thought we were gonna do in 2015. But all kinds of things started popping up. First off, the videos are way too long. You look at the research, you all know. 2 minutes to 7 minutes, I would say 2 to 3 minutes, micro-learning chunks. Okay, we could split up their videos, like, all right, fine, we could do that. But man, there was a lot of text on the screen. That text wasn't matching what people were saying. So again, what do we know as educators? That's cognitive overload, causes dissonance, not a great way to learn material. Great in a pinch, it works in a pinch, right? But not for like a long-term strategy. Images, poor image size, quantity. Come on, how does that look on a computer? What if they have a 17-inch monitor? Does it even work on mobile first, right? All kinds of issues with copyright around that. Probably fair use most images, but heck, they don't even know where they're coming from, right? So that's an issue. Poor narration and audio quality. Again, we know what turns people off to video the fastest. Bad audio, right? So we had to work through all of that. And then all of this causes issues with accessibility, right? So we want to be not just federally compliant, we want to use universal design. We want good colors. We don't want to use a lot of italics. We want the right size images, right? All the things that we think about in accessible course design, we want to think about in videos too. How can our videos be accessible beyond just captions on the screen? So we said, okay, we'll just redesign their PowerPoints and rewrite their scripts. This is, all right, no problem, right? Like, give me your material, we'll redo it. Okay, so we start doing this. But then we thought about, is this the best way to teach with video, right? And so we started doing more and more research and started to think about how can we truly benefit learners if we're going to redesign PowerPoints and rewrite scripts anyways, and then we're going to end up doing the editing and all of those pieces. Let's think about this. So I want to show you an excerpt from one of our videos. It's in a pest management for pesticide applicators course. So this is a big audience of ours. In Pennsylvania, to spray pesticides, herbicides, you have to be certified. You have to get recertification credits every year. So we have about 20 courses that go towards those recertification credits. But we had to teach about pesticide resistance. So I'm going to show you this as an example. And let's see how it goes. Actually, I think I can just, all right.
When intensive pesticide use kills the susceptible individuals in a population, but leaves the resistant ones to reproduce. How does that happen? Let's take a look at an example. The insects at the bottom are about to be sprayed with an insecticide. The ones that are black are susceptible to the insecticide. The single brown insect is resistant. When the insecticide is applied, most of the pest population is decimated by that control measure. What is left are a few susceptible insects and all the resistant individuals. At this point, susceptible and resistant insects mate. And now, their offspring contain some of those resistant traits. And when they breed, there will be more resistant individuals in the population than you had before. There are still susceptible ones, but now there will be more of a mix of resistant individuals and susceptible individuals. Now at this point, the pesticide applicator might be getting a little annoyed. He or she may be thinking, doggone it, I applied a product and I thought I was going to get good control, and that population built back up to the same level it was before. So the pesticide applicator decides to reapply the pesticide at the highest rate on the label and keeps reapplying it to control the pest. And so the applicator, not aware that there are more resistant individuals in the general population, will apply this pesticide product again. And it will kill most individuals. Now, some of the resistant individuals mate, or a resistant and a susceptible insect mate. And through several generations and pesticide applications, there is an eventual shift from a susceptible pest population to a resistant pest population. Typically, the spread of resistance through a pest population can occur more rapidly in pests that have many generations per year and many offspring per generation.
Okay. So again, that's just an example of when I think about teaching with videos. So just go ahead and shout out, what would be like the benefits to our learner from teaching this concept this way? Or are there benefits? I mean, do people learn? Did you learn?
Yes.
Yeah, why did you learn? How did you learn?
It keeps you engaged.
It kept you engaged, okay?
Visualization of the bugs not dying and reproducing, and you can
Yeah.
quickly see, oh, that's why they're not dying.
Okay, so you had like that visual reinforcement to what was being said.
Very short and simple too.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Good. I didn't write it, but good to hear that. Yeah, so all those things that you just said, again, when we were like, okay, well, we could record them doing their PowerPoints. I mean, yeah, we could have taught that with still images and some narration that went together and was pretty good, but this worked out pretty well, I think, right? So it came from some planning, and again, like I'm going to talk about in a little bit, how do you scale for that, right? Like this could take a long time to make, right? Right. So I'll talk about, hopefully how it doesn't have to take a long time to make. So let's go back here. Okay, so this is just a statistic to show you how much I and our team like doing educational video. Again, we think this is a good method for teaching our audience in the Open edX platform. Given who our audience is, what they need to learn, it's a lot of how-to, it's a lot of beginner. So we have about 580 hours of course content. We have 110 courses that are live right now. It equals about 580 hours of content. About 65% of that content is video, right? So again, just to give you the ideas of video heavy and how we're doing it. So I hope you understand a little bit why we've gone the way that we've gone. And so now I want to get into the how. How do we do it? So we need to use best practices, right? And best practices for thinking about how do people learn. This is why I said, how many of you are instructional designers, education is background, right? This is our job, is to design in a way so that people learn the material that they need to learn. So love this book. If you're interested in video production or multimedia and you haven't read this yet, this is really where the research is. This is an older version. I think there's a new one out now, but it's Ruth Clark and Richard Mayer. And this gets into multimedia principles, multimedia design. And again, the best research I've found is like, how do people learn with multimedia? So with multimedia, video is one thing. And it's where you're using, well, here. I've got it. Cognitive theory of multimedia learning. So if you're not familiar with this, it's the idea that like basically we get information, words and images. It goes into our audio and visual channels, right? And it's going, that working memory, that's our brain, right? And we're putting it all in there. We're bringing in some prior knowledge from long-term memory. We're processing it. And then learning happens when we actually put it back into our long-term memory, right? So this is the theory. And so we want to design video, multimedia video in this case, keeping all of this in mind. So some big ideas about multimedia learning and video learning is, first and foremost, when audio and visual channels work together, learning and understanding are more complete, right? You just saw that in the video, right? There was, what you were hearing was matching or being enhanced by what you were seeing and vice versa. There wasn't any extra words going on. There wasn't anything extra on the screen. It was extremely white, right? That was very intentional, right? Because that's gonna go with the theory of multimedia learning. On the flip side, if there's too much to process at once, less of the material is learned. So I said when we started recording people's PowerPoints, there was stuff all over the PowerPoint. It wasn't matching the narration. There were all these like just images there to be nice, you know, so they'd be talking about cows and there'd be a picture of flowers. And you're like, okay, like, so that's all extra work my brain has to do to try to learn the subject matter, right? So we stripped all that out. In the videos that we make. You know, it's very intentional that Ryan there was recorded on a gray background, right? It shouldn't be distracting, right? So I want to show you one more piece, one more example of a video from another one as we talk about best practices, because I think this shows a few more best practices that are out there for multimedia. Spotted lanternfly. Has anyone ever heard of the spotted lanternfly? I'm going to do my PSA right now. Yeah, it is a nasty invasive pest that is eating a lot of agricultural products. It's also causing homeowners a lot of problems. First discovered in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has set up all kinds of quarantine zones between counties. And so Penn State Extension, this was actually one of our first big courses, unfortunately. I said, how do you opportunize on an invasive pest? But we partnered with the Pennsylvania Department of Ag to make a train the trainer, so that people who own businesses, if you're going across county lines in and out of quarantines, you have to get a permit and show that you're inspecting your vehicle, that you're not bringing these from county to county. We've had 35,000 people in Pennsylvania alone take this course so far, which is pretty awesome. And then we started partnering with other states because the bugger's all over the place now. So what I want to show you though is we're teaching people how to find the egg masses. This is what really hitchhikes. How to find the egg masses and then seek and destroy, right? Find them and get rid of them. But again, I want you to look at this from like, how are we teaching with video? Now I'm gonna pick up midway through this video. What I want you to know is Amy, the educator, she's already taught us how to identify egg masses. You know, she's talked about what they look like and the shape of them. So just watch what she does next, what we do next.
Now, let's see if you can spot the egg masses. Spotted lanternflies often lay their egg masses on tree trunks or branches. Can you spot the egg masses here? That's right, this tree has many egg masses. Now for more of a challenge. Here is a tulip poplar tree in the winter. Can you spot the egg masses from afar? That's right. There are many egg masses from the bottom to top of this tree. Spotted lanternflies are especially drawn to Tree of Heaven. Their egg masses blend well with Tree of Heaven bark. Can you see the egg mass on this Tree of Heaven trunk? They are good at blending in on the bark of other trees too. Can you see the egg mass here? Gypsy moth egg masses have a similar appearance to those of spotted lanternfly. Many of the same surfaces are used by both species. The covering for gypsy moth is more fibrous and generally more orange in color. Gypsy moth eggs are more spherical than spotted lanternfly eggs. Feel free to destroy gypsy moth egg masses too. Spotted lanternfly egg masses can be found on a wide variety of items. Be sure to check all surfaces.
She's going to keep going. She's going to show us how they're like on getting into railroad cars, the bottoms of trucks. My favorite is tailgaters who come to Penn State on their coolers. They don't have to get a permit to come to Penn State to watch a football game, but they probably should. But again, okay, so what did you see there in terms of teaching with video, like how we're doing it? Some best practice. Feedback. Yeah.
I think it built on the diagram you showed before, that one of the input is the learning that they got from before. Like they already know it, so she built on that.
Yeah, the prior knowledge. Yeah, right, because I said she had already explained, okay, here's how you look for them.
There's a kind of progression of complexity. You start with this bubble, like
Yeah.
can you see the
Mhm.
here, etc., and then start explaining more about what is everything.
Yeah, and getting a little harder. Yeah, right.
And returning back to easy in the last row.
Okay.
So it got harder, and then like let them have success.
Yeah. It's like a game of Where's Waldo. Did anyone else think that's my generation? Remember that? Like, start seeing them everywhere. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the comedic relief at the end.
Yeah, right. She's great. She was in the military, and she's got this like delivery and performance that is like, that's why she's like, feel free to. Anyways, but like, yeah, you just have to know her. But yes, I thought it was very dry humor as well. Yeah. So again, just another example of how we're teaching with video, what we're trying to do, the effect that we're trying to have. So just real quick, some best practices, again, that our team uses when we think about teaching with video. I already went through audience and learning outcomes. Chunk and scaffold, that's what you saw, right? Like start easy, make it a little bit harder. Like we scaffolded them by first showing them how to identify egg masses. Simple and explicit instruction, right? We're not using a lot of what I like fondly call academies, right? Now we had to take a lot of research and we had to decipher that and say, okay, who is our audience? Like, let's make sure we're talking to them and using really explicit instruction. Multiple modes of learning, right? You saw that again, that narration went with your visuals. Practice. Right? So you said about giving feedback, and what I love about this video is it shows that we can actually use video and have people practice things. Had I kept showing you the next 2 minutes of this, by goodness gracious, you would have been able to go spotted lanternfly egg mass. I'm pretty sure of it. It was a lot of practice. And then last, and this is the reason that we have our folks on the screen, right? Our content experts, personalization. And you know, I know like none of the people that come to us have typically been recorded in videos before. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in just a moment. But we want them there anyways, because I think this is a really important piece specifically for our Penn State Extension audience, right? We want a face to go with the content, right? We want something that feels authentic, right? So we get the performances we get, and you know, it's good enough. And I think it works. I think this part is really important. Okay, so all this design and best practices, but here's a reality, and we all know this. Resources. What's our budget? How many folks do we have working on our team? What are the skill sets of our content experts of our team? What technology do we have available, right? So of course we have to balance these two. And this is what I want to talk about for the last few minutes, is the production process. So any of you have ever made video before, especially if like you go out in the field to do it, you know this can take a really long time. And to make quality video, oh my gosh, well maybe I have enough money to make one. To make 30 in a course, are you kidding me, right? So I approach production very much with a business mindset. And if you take nothing else out today, the approach that's worked for me is be as efficient as absolutely possible. People aren't gonna like it all the time, and it's okay. Like, I'm nice about it, right? But we're gonna use a lot of efficiency. So we're gonna look at those processes and efficiency: pre-production, during, and post. I divide it up into 3. And the first one's pre-production. It's just like it sounds. This is where you plan. Plan. Audience, learning outcomes. What's the scope of the video? Scope creep happens in videos just like it happens everywhere else. Narration, scripting, what are your visuals? Do you have the visuals that you need? You saw some of those spotted lanternfly shots. Obviously someone took them on their camera, on their phone, right? Those vertical shots, it's not great, it's the best we could get, right? We needed to make the video, right? But we had to make sure that we had those visuals. All this leads us to, you know what? We're gonna storyboard every single video. Now there's lots of storyboarding software out there. There's 8 instructional designers on my team. Right? We all do it the same exact way. So yes, people have personal preferences. We've looked at those personal preferences, but in the end, you know what we use? A Word document, right? We use a Word document, and this is very standard for what they look like, right? You can see we put in the thumbnails, we put the links to where the images are. We've already collected our images. We're putting what's in italics is actually the text that's gonna be on the screen, if there's something that's gonna be on the screen. So it's consistent across our team. Any instructional designer could pick up somebody else's project and get going on it. That's the idea. We also use this when we record the educator, when they come into our studio. Then we hand this off to our multimedia specialists, who then edit the video together. Everything is here. This is also awesome for the review process with our content experts. We don't move forward until they, and anyone they want to review their video, has signed off on this. Okay? Every now and then that kind of backfires when we actually put the video together. I'll talk about that. But the idea is that we get all the review, we get everything done in this. So spend the most time in pre-production. It's the cheapest. By far and large, it's the cheapest. So sometimes, you know, we'll be working on videos for courses for years, and I kid you not, because we're waiting on the back and forth, the peer reviews, all of those pieces, but we're gonna leave it in pre-production until we get that thing finalized, right? Again, it's the most efficient way, it's the cheapest way to go. So then that's gonna bring us into what I call during production, or production itself. So we have a studio, I'll show you a picture in a moment, that's just in our office. It's very simple. But within that studio, we have all kinds of like SOPs and checklists. Like, this is how you set it up. This is where the lighting is. These are your audio settings on your camera. We pre-tested all of that to minimize what we have to do in post-production when we put it all together. We've talked about staffing. You know, we'll have somebody running the camera. We'll have someone as like the producer, making sure the script is followed. If it's not, doing rewrites on the spot. And then we have someone running the teleprompter. And I did say teleprompter, and I'll talk about that. But this is just an image that we just shot. A colleague of mine just shot these a few days ago. Pretty simple setup. There's nothing fancy going on here. It cost us a few $1,000s of equipment, not a lot. And it works. That's Greg. He runs our camera all the time. He's just great. That's our teleprompter right there. Okay. So the other piece of during production is what we call talent performance, right? Like I said, we're bringing folks in, and typically most of them have never been on camera before. You know, they weren't trained in this. And that's our expectation, and we're ready for that. So the first thing that we do is we teleprompt everyone. Now, anyone in the video production biz, this is highly controversial, right? Because oftentimes when you teleprompt somebody who hasn't been on camera before, it can seem really dry. You know, you can tell they're reading the camera, right? But again, when I said for 2 things, one I said is I get practices as efficient as we can make them, right? This is the most efficient way. If somebody starts ad-libbing, or, you know, they're just gonna kind of do a free flow, it is a post-production nightmare, first of all, because you have so many clips. Yeah, lots of you are nodding like you've been there. And then we do what you call in the video world Frankensteining them together, and you're pulling this clip and this clip and this clip, and now you're trying to smooth out the audio and the transitions, and are they our camera and are they not? It's just kind of a mess. And then the second thing I brought up earlier is I really like the personalization of having someone on camera. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we do what we call talent coaching in the studio. And we're giving lots of tips. We're being really kind, really friendly in trying to get people conversational. We love it when they practice ahead of time. Every now and then we'll ask them to go in a room by themselves and practice a little bit. use their body language, you know, have inflection in their voice, all those things. What we're looking for is good enough. There's no expectation of perfection, and we've had to let go of that. Now, we could bring in actors, actresses, we could just do voiceover talent and probably get a little higher quality there, but again, for us, there's reasons not to. So again, this is just one more shot. Judy over here, she's running the teleprompter software from that desk. Margie's on screen, she'd be reading off the teleprompter on the camera. Danielle's over there, she's a producer, she's just like making sure everything goes well per that storyboard. Right, so that's a very typical setup. So we're doing these off of 3 people, which is really nice. Sometimes we do it on 2, just depending with teleprompter and the camera person, but we get 3 in there if we can. So my big takeaway from during production, this would be my recommendation if you're looking to scale up video, right? Take it for what it's worth. Last, you have post-production. So this is where you put it all together, right? This is your video editing. So our videographer, again, we have more SOPs like workflow documentation than a lot of people, but it works because he has a way that he processes the recordings, audio and lighting settings. It also gives us a really consistent product in the end. This is also where we're going to do any completion of graphics or animations. We've spec'd those out in the storyboarding phase. You know, we've figured out because we need the narration and the animation to match. You saw how that works with the pesticide resistance one, right? So a lot of skill there. This is where we're going to probably finish those. And something I'm super excited about, talk about efficient, is our multimedia specialists are making a graphics library. So no longer are they going to have to necessarily make a new graphic from scratch, but actually have like, oh, we've done cow pictures before. Oh, we've done poultry pictures. We've done manure pictures, right? And be able to pull from those. So that's where we're going next. I'm pretty excited. 4 multimedia specialists right now, 1 editing software. You know, I said we streamline things. The idea is any multimedia specialist can pick up somebody else's project, jump in and edit it. Heck, our instructional designers can do it if they know Premiere. Preset styles, font, size, call outs. Why do we do all that? Well, one is we want to have consistency in the brand. When someone's going to watch an extension video, we want it to look a certain way. 2, accessibility, right? Mobile first design, accessibility, put those together, right? So we have some real standards that we use around that. And then again, 3rd, it's the idea that everyone's operating pretty similar. There's room for creativity and uniqueness, but we get these things in place across the team. So we use Adobe Premiere. And what I have highlighted there is down to the part of the digital organization. This is a huge piece in any job these days, but I would say in video editing, to the point now in interviews when we're interviewing multimedia specialists, we like, so talk to us about digital file organization. If they have no idea what we're talking about, they don't come on board because you've got to be super, like we're talking about hundreds of assets maybe in a 4-minute video, like the number of B-roll images and graphics, and then you got the people on screen. So really important piece of this. So last piece of post-production is we have to get the video finalized and review. Okay, so again, anyone who's been in the video world, here's where, right? Yeah. We go for 1 round of revisions. That's it, right? We set that expectation with our educators. I have to set that expectation internally on our team. How can we do it? Because we finalized everything in the storyboard. There shouldn't be any surprises here. You know, and every now and then it is hard to know, like, how's that image gonna look when the narration goes with it? Or, hey, you know, that it's just not working right, let's switch out an image. Or there was a little blip here. But I would say we're up to the point now where about 60 to 70% of our videos don't need revisions, right? We get second set of eyes on them, but it's done because we did our work in pre-production. We also did our work when we filmed the educator. They don't get to leave until we reviewed all the clips. We make sure we have everything that we need from them and we have the quality that we need. So 1 round of revisions, and then of course, imagine this, we have a structured way that we do these. Every instructional designer does it the same way with the content expert that they're working with. The educator, the instructional designer puts their comments, educator puts those, and those go back together to the multimedia specialist. Not back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This is where things get so expensive in video production, so time consuming. The best is when someone's like, the content expert's like, okay, great, I got the video. Now I'm going to go show 4 of my colleagues for a review. And you're like, no, no, you're not. Well, okay, you can, because the storyboard wins. Again, I don't hold to this. We don't hold to this 100% of the time, but this is what we go for. It's like, hey, you know what? Like, we storyboarded this out. This is what we agreed to. No, we're not going to go back and now insert da-da-da-da-da. This isn't going to work for us, right? So the storyboard wins most of the time. And that's what we do. Those are our production processes. Again, efficient, streamlined, get everyone on the same page, set those expectations ahead of time. And that's what I have to tell you today, and I want to just leave with this. This is a comment that we got back to our spotted lanternfly course. And this is from someone who was mandated to take the course, and this is what he said about it. I mean, could we want anything more, right? Like, our learning outcomes are met, like right here in this comment. And so I'm really proud of that comment, and there's a lot more like that. In that spotted lanternfly course, I said 35,000 people in Pennsylvania, probably 70% of them is the first time they've ever done online learning. I mean, these are people who, you know, their daily job is railroad workers, truck drivers, landscape industry, lumber industry, things like that, right? But we were able to design a course and then design video to go and teach them the content that we needed. So I'm proud of that. I'm sharing that with you. Again, this is my story, my team's story of how we got to where we are, but I'm really interested in what you think. Any big learnings that you have, what you might want to apply to your work, and any questions that you have around it. And okay, now we're going to use the mic. I didn't behave before, but I really wanted to use the chalkboard. Did anyone see this chalk up here? I know, I was so tempted to like write on the chalkboard.
Check. Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. Mm-hmm. As you think about the mass of the work that you've done, do you have a sense of how many man-hours per delivered content, yeah, and how that might translate to dollars per delivered content?
You sound like my stakeholders. I do. We've tracked hours from the beginning on course. The range I gave people now with the idea that it's a video-heavy course, so about 65% of the course is video content. I give a range of, for just the work on the digital education team, not the content expert, I say 75 hours to 150 hours per 1 hour of final course content. So it took me a while to kind of think about how to measure this and looking how industry measures. So 75 to 150, if I'm giving a true estimate, I'm going to average out at about 100, unless I know it's super video heavy or a lot of animation and graphic. And then, yes, I have a dollar value that we put on that per hour, right? We typically go I'm not going to tell you what, I can. We typically go about anywhere from 40 to 50 an hour as an estimation. So, yeah, it's not bad. And again, I think that speaks to the processes that we have in place to make that happen. We wouldn't be doing the amount of video or the amount of courses that we do if it was higher. So I work really hard to keep those down and low. So thanks for the question. Yeah.
Hey, so more a comment than a question. I do not work in video production, but do a lot of other creative production and just design in both personal and professional life. And I really like the commentary of standardizing on the tools and the processes, especially for things like review, which I feel like can always be a painful process, but specifying that up front and giving the venue and the expectation for how you communicate those, I thought was really useful, not just for video, but for lots of creative and design work.
Yeah. Thank you. I wish you could have said that. I loved how you just said that. This is great. Yeah, expectations is huge. You know, when we started, I didn't come from video production world. I was like a kindergarten through third grade teacher is what I started with, right? So learning how much expectation that we had to give to our content experts, to our stakeholders, to leadership, yeah. And you've got to have it up front. And even with my own internal team, the expectation is like, this is only going to go through one round of revisions, right? So really spec it out ahead of time, yeah.
So do you go really light on the animation? Do you try to make sure it's like easy? Because I know that's the one thing that blows my budget and takes double the time.
Yeah. Such a good question. I wish my colleague Carrie was here to answer that. She's an animator by trade. She's our lead multimedia specialist. Yeah, and really managing expectations with the client, with the content expert going into it. So we go very much on the side of simple, just because one, I think that's better for design in general, but two, also for that efficiency's sake, right? And even like the way, like I called that animation. I mean, it was just very simple how that was all put together. So yes, but back to managing that expectation ahead of time and letting folks know. Like I had a faculty who was like, she wanted like cartoons, like literally, I'm not kidding, cartoons, and like cartoons were not happening, right? With the amount of time and effort, that was a hard conversation, and it took a lot. And it finally showed the price. I had to show a price tag, right, and say, do you have extra funds to pay for this? We would have had to freelance it out. So yeah, animations and graphics can be a time sink. This is where we're looking into creating that library for ourselves, with the idea too. Then our instructional designers, when they're designing storyboards, they can be like, oh right, you guys already have a segment on birthing cows, which I can't tell you how many videos we've made about birthing cows. Like, why do we keep remaking the same, like a similar graphic, right? So now we can go and we can pull from that. And I think that's going to get us even more efficient. So, yeah.
Thank you for the great presentation. I'd like to ask a question about the duration of the video. Mm-hmm. How long should it be? I mean, what's the optimal duration?
I'd love to hear other people's ideas. I mean, when I read like the research, they say 2 to 6 minutes. Our analytics and data tell us if you can do 1.5 to 3, it's a lot better. If you can keep somebody for 30 seconds, you can typically keep them for most of the video. So that hook is really important in the beginning. But that said, if somebody's really motivated to watch a video, like I'm a mountain biker, right? I mean, I can watch a 25-minute mountain bike video. It doesn't matter how bad it is, right? Because I want to learn that subject, right? I'm really motivated to learn. So if you have a highly motivated person, like raising poultry in your backyard, like these people want to learn this, right? But if I have this spotted lanternfly permit training, where people are taking it on their mobile phone in their truck because, it's mandated by the government that they have to take it, short and sweet, right? Get it to them as fast. Like they do not want to be watching that video, right? For the most part. So, but yeah, it's an interesting topic for conversation. I mean, what to go for. So my recommendation would be 2 to 5 minutes. Stay closer to the 2. Chunk, like this is why we have 30 videos in a course, right? They're 2 minutes long.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for this insightful presentation. My question is, in this age, as video lessons are becoming more present in the learning world, are there, can you point us to a more standardized style of video lessons, or if there's such a thing, or if everybody's just making their own video lessons and learning as they go? I don't know if there's a edX way of doing things, or Coursera way of doing things, etc.
So we made the decision to make our videos self-made, and that's part of because we want this to be Penn State Extension, kind of like a branding thing, right? And this is our own content, right? And we want to be putting it out there. So that said, there are plenty of ways to use video that's already made, right? That's already out there, like linking in to other people's videos, right? There's content libraries of video out there now to be using in a course. So again, we made the choice early on that we were going to make our own videos, But that's not the only way to do a lot of video and multimedia in a course. I don't have any exact resources because it's not what I do, but I bet people in this room do. So, yeah. Yeah, and I meant to say that earlier. You know, it was a very conscious choice that we were going to make our own videos. But certainly you can have video-heavy courses that, you know, where you're using other people's video and giving them credit. Yeah.
Could you talk a bit more about the talent coaching that you do and how you go about that process?
Yeah, lovingly. I mean, I'm not trying to, but yeah, yeah, because we call it like deer in headlights, right? Like the first time in there, unless you're really comfortable on camera. So yeah, we just try to be really friendly, accommodating. Hopefully we already have a relationship with this person. And it's funny because my team, we just did a training on this recently, where we actually just put one of our instructional designers on camera, and she did a really poor performance. And we said, what would you do with this, right? It's a little bit of triaging, right? Okay, like what, I'm not gonna get everything. I'm not gonna get perfect, right? So what do I need the most? What I typically try to do is to stop the typewriter eyes first with the teleprompter. There's a lot you can do with the way you control a teleprompter and format a teleprompter to actually direct your talent so they don't even know you're doing it. We get the people, there's a lot of this. So our videographer has this great trick where he goes and he acts like he's putting, it looks like a filter for the lights behind them. And he's like, I'm just putting this here for light. It gets them to stop moving. You know, so we can be subtle, we can be very overt. I had one time we did a whole recording and the guy never blinked. He just never, ever blinked. And so we get like 4 videos in and we're like, he's not blinking. And so we show him the videos and he goes, I'm not blinking. And we're like, yeah, you're not. Like, we let them call it out, right? Like watch yourself on video. Sometimes that can be a really effective way. So there's no one way we do it. I think it's like any other relationship when you're, you know, anything else that you're doing, you're trying to understand the person and what's going to work best for them. But again, also not expecting perfection and really setting for yourself like what's going to be the good enough here, right? Neither of those people were perfect, right? But it matched what we needed, so yeah.
Thanks for the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about your field shoots and how those are different?
Yeah, on location. Yeah. So we don't do a lot of, we only put someone on screen typically if it's like an interview style. And we do those. Typically those are videos that are grant funded. You know, our funds just, it's costly to go out in the field and do that kind of work, but we do it for grant funded. We have lots of people that are like, oh, come and record me in the field for my course. We're like, no, come into our studio. Controlled environment. As soon as you go out into the field with a camera, you're dealing with lighting, you're dealing with audio, huge, you know, so you've got to have a skilled videographer out there. I would say that too, to get a good quality. That said, we do a lot of shoots of going out for still images and B-roll that we'll use within our courses. And we teach a lot of our educators on how to take that for us, right? So back to those birth and cow things, like we might not necessarily go into the barn when the cow's being born, but we've given them tips about how to film some of that. And then we can go ahead and we can clean it up a little bit in editing often. If we can get the good enough, if we can get their camera settings right, their phone settings right, to take that image and get them to hold the phone horizontally, we're better off. So, yeah. And I realize we're past time if people...
I just want to piggyback on that. Just, do you have any tips for those people who want to do it at home?
At home?
Yeah.
Yeah, so during the pandemic...
That's right.
During the pandemic, we switched over back to audio only. So anything we were in the middle of making, like where they were going to be on the screen right away, we were like, okay, do we have a visual? Do we have something we can do? We went back to kind of like sometimes just a very simple screen with some text on it, bulleted points that match narration. And then what we did is we started coaching them at home, right? So we sent them a tip of some tips, and then we would like get on a Zoom call with them and be like, okay, check your settings, did that kind of coaching, again, looking for the good enough. We also, at that same time, purchased a really fancy audio editing software. So as long as we got something good enough, we could bring it in. Now, that's more post-production work than I want us doing on a regular basis, but we did it during the pandemic and we were able to do it. We still get folks, I have an educator who just had surgery. We wanted her to record some course videos. We went ahead to that audio only and went through that whole procedure of helping her out at home, getting her to send the recording. So can be done. We did get that video studio opened as soon as we could, though. About 3 months into the pandemic, we got it set up for social distancing and got back on track. So, yeah.
Thank you. Just one question about your experience with the transcripts.
Yeah.
Because we usually use a lot of transcripts, but what about your experience from the learner's perspective?
You mean transcripts once the video is in place?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're just using the Open edX platform, and we upload everything onto YouTube. We host it there. We have an account with a vendor. We use rev.com that provides closed captions plus an SRT file. That SRT file is then downloadable off of edX. It is a really sweet system because as soon as we put the video in YouTube, we just Rev integrates right into YouTube. We don't have to upload anything to them. SRT file goes, so everything is pretty seamless. What we find is lots of people like the transcript. Like when we talk to learners, like some people will download them. Lots of people turn on captions. We know that. So while those are all accessibility pieces, I would very much say they're a universal design principle. Even if I didn't have to do them for accessible reasons, I would provide them to learners. But yeah, so basically finding a vendor where that's all integrated and seamless is really important. If we had to upload each of those manually and download things and yeah.
I'm going to get fired if I keep doing questions.
Yeah. No more questions, but I will be around the conference, though, if you have more. So thank you. And I look forward to talking to you and hear about your experiences. Thank you.